Hey, Torsten, great to see you again. And hello to everybody out there that might be listening to this video. Torsten and I decided to hop on and record a little bit of content about this
Yeah, big news
absolute,
today.
about this absolutely amazing acquisition that occurred or was announced yesterday during Palo Alto's quarterly earnings report, where Palo Alto has acquired the company Chronosphere for $3.35 billion, which is a massive acquisition. And so,
That is a massive acquisition.
Tor- Torsten covers observability for Omdia, and I cover threat and exposure management and risk reduction in the cybersecurity realm. And this story has a foot in both sides. So let's just open this discussion a little bit with your overall thoughts on the observability side. Why did Palo do an acquisition such as this from an observability? Why are they picking up an observability company, Torsten?
The reason why I think I can give you a pretty detailed answer is because I talked to Martin just last week about the whole history of that Chronosphere company. And he gave me the whole story of the AI-guided troubleshooting that was basically, it was almost like the conclusion of a movie where I thought, wow, so everything in the last 6 years really led to this, right? And it was good. I always liked this story, but you have to remember they come out of Uber. And Uber probably has one of the biggest infrastructures and application topologies that you will find anywhere, and also super distributed. So it doesn't get much more tricky from a monitoring perspective. And they said at the time, there's nothing else that we can use. We built our own, and they founded that open source project called M3, which was a distributed time series database where they put the metrics in. And their whole spiel, their whole mission was ultimate scalability so that developers see what's happening right away when they code something, Tyler. But
Yeah.
obviously the fact that it was Palo Alto, a security company, that was as surprising for me as it probably was for you.
Yeah, it was absolutely a bit of a surprise at first, but then when I started to put some thought process behind it, it was pretty clear that I think this acquisition is to round out the data and context that's being pulled into this new platform that Palo essentially is driving toward. And that platform, what they're really saying with this acquisition is that platform is significantly larger than we had originally thought, right? I had originally thought, okay, this is a platform that's targeting security operations using AI for automated remediation, foundationally based on cyber-related context. But now they're pulling in context that's operational, that's observability related, that's asset related in that way. So do you see this as maybe a direct shot across the bow at Datadog and Dynatrace, or is this just like a cybersecurity play? I think it's got to bridge both, right?
Yes, and Splunk, that what we saw at .conf, where they were talking about the distributed processing of observability data and tried and carve out their own niche in terms of scalability. And we're talking about how data ingestion will be built differently and not consumption should not prevent observability any longer. So there will be pre-processing, there will be using storage of devices and things like that. And that is also part of the big story of Chronosphere, to get this scalable so that you don't have to pay for everything that you do in terms of storage, that you handle that pipeline intelligently. There's a lot of it to it. And then the ultimate part is that whole autonomous operations part. So last week at Con, we talked a lot about autonomous operations. And, that word autonomous is an interesting one because it's not really autonomous, right? Because there's no AGI, but it is autonomous in a way that an agent does something to remediate an issue. And I want to ask you actually about that. And I think Palo Alto a lot better than I do. And I know Chronosphere pretty well, but I think the way this works is Palo Alto has this Agentics AI framework, and they want to use that to basically use the AI guided troubleshooting that Chronosphere has developed and basically bring it to all of those massive deployments that they can find and offer this autonomous issue remediation there. Do you see that the same?
100%. I think there's a fine line between remediation of runtime issues from a, hey, we're having an outage or a downtime or a bug, and a security remediation, right? There's a fine line between those, if that line even exists, right? And I think that it
That's
makes a
true.
whole lot of sense to bridge that gap. And Palo's taking what's super interesting to me is they're going way beyond being a automated remediation platform for security operations. They're taking that and going, we can even extend into IT operations. We can extend into bug fixing. We can extend into, predictive analytics that start to say, hey, we're starting to see a potential outage over in this section. Let's kick off some agents that go and fix that problem. And this sounds so futuristic. It's so matrix to me to start talking like this.
Ambitious.
But this is what really gets me excited about this
Yeah.
acquisition is the connective tissue between cybersecurity, IT operations, automated remediation, and how it's all built on a framework of context and data.
Yeah, and that's another big story that Chronosphere had, because at a certain point they noticed M3 only supports metrics, and they purchased Calyptia for Fluent Bit and Fluent D, which is a whole pipeline and data processing solution, which at the time was just for telemetry data, right? Logs, traces, all kinds of events, basically anything. And I remember last week, Martin was talking all of a sudden of custom data. So where he was really giving me that, he planted that idea in my brain where he said, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily even specific application telemetry data. We could collect anything because we have that flexible pipeline. And now we can deliver that data to the agents and deliver the agents plus the data anywhere where we need for remediation. Very ambitious, it's
Yeah.
very interesting
Yeah, I
story.
think I think from a risk perspective, this gives Palo visibility into some things it didn't have before, right? Shadow IT, or I'm sorry, shadow AI, things that may be unmanaged that they don't actually have access to that the Chronosphere technology actually can see and provide visibility to. And this is the unification of data sets into an even broader context, right? So in the last couple minutes we have together on this video brief, do you have any research that you're working on that supports, why this might be a good, like, give me a little idea of the research you're currently working on that we can bring to bear for this.
Well, we have a lot of, it's basically, I'm about to publish the second part of my observability research, where in the first part, we have a lot of interesting data where we used AI to power observability so that it can, as autonomously as possible, provide insights and make actionable recommendation for IT operators and for developers in terms of how they should change the way their applications work and how they should continuously optimize them, and also how to do a root cause analysis. And so that was part one. And right now we are in the second part where we are looking at exactly what Palo Alto is trying to do. And that is, how do we use observability for operating massive AI deployments that can be distributed, that can be on the edge and can be anywhere. And what we are finding across the board during both parts of that research is always the fragmentation and the silos that kills the actionability, where what you really need, and this is why the Calyptia acquisition was so interesting and so important, AI cannot replace context, and you need to give AI normalized data streams. Only then can it do something. And yeah, our research really shows that's where customers are struggling. And they often believe they have it under control, but then they find, oh, wow, 50-60% of our issues that we are having, we learn through the client calling us and through the help desk instead of doing that proactively and doing that quickly. Yeah, it's a very timely thing. I don't want to say it's before its time, but it's certainly very timely. How about your
It's
research, Tyler?
it's
Anything
it's
interesting?
it's riding right on the crest of the wave. The timing is impeccable for this acquisition. I've just completed the research on automating risk reduction using AI, which is essentially an agentic story where context is pulled together to do automated risk reduction for AI and threat exposure management. And I'll be kicking off in Q1 a platformization study where we're going to research what platforms will come to dominate different subsections of security and potentially how that reaches into IT. So I'm looking forward to 2026 with you, Torsten. Thank you so much for hopping on this video with me and getting this thing recorded in real time. Our research is going to cross next year. I'm looking forward to doing some fun stuff with you, bud.
Thanks, Tyler. Always a pleasure.